Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and this is going to be a start of a new series, and this is going to be about Formula One's most controversial moments. Now I want to start this by looking at one of the greatest controversies of all time, Senna versus Prost. So undoubtedly two of the greatest drivers ever to compete in Formula One, and it was pretty incredible that they were competing in Formula One at the same era. They were right at the top of the grid together, so there was bound to be drama. However, it didn't start that way. Prost wanted McLaren to sign Ayrton Senna, as he knew he was the greatest option for the team. McLaren wanted to sign alternate drivers to make Prost the #1 driver in the team, but Prost wanted to drive the team forward and make sure they had the best driver lineup possible, so he suggested, why not sign Ayrton Senna? He's been incredible over the last couple of years. That's exactly what McLaren did. They signed him, and there were two incredible drivers sitting in the same team. And I think it's pretty incredible that Alain Prost didn't want to have a #2 driver. I feel like a lot of people in his situation, maybe many of us as well, if we knew we were a very good driver, we wouldn't want anyone else that was good in the same team at the same time racing with us, because we wanted the wins all to ourselves. But I think it shows the class of Alain Prost that he would want to do that, and he would want Ayrton Senna to be in the team. But once that happened, it didn't all quite go to plan. A very interesting 1988 season ensued as the two as teammates. Ayrton Senna won the championship with 90 points overall. Alain Prost was 3 points further back with 87. However, that was with dropped scores. Without dropped scores, Alain Prost would have been champion with 105 points to Ayrton Senna's 94. That's something we often forget about when we think about Formula One seasons of the past. There were drop scores which did alter championships, and even though the McLaren of the 1988 season was the very dominant car, winning all but one race, it was still a close championship between two drivers, which made it exciting. And going into the 1989 season, the two came together once again, and probably the most infamous moment in Formula One history, the Japanese Grand Prix of 1989. So the two were heading into this penultimate round of the season in Japan, both going for the championship, but it was very much in Alain Prost's favour. Ayrton Senna needed to win both races towards the end of the season, both at Japan and in Australia, to even have a chance at the championship, and Alain Prost only needed to score a couple of points to mathematically seal it, and he was making sure that that was the case and trying to do it in the Japanese Grand Prix, but it didn't quite all go to plan. They started on the front row together and flew off into the distance. The McLaren was still the superior car in 1989. While it was not quite as superior as in the 1988 season, the car was still leaps and bounds ahead of the rest of the field, so it was very much a two-horse race for this championship and this race win. Ayrton Senna saw his opportunity going into the chicane towards the end of the Suzuka lap. He went down the inside of Alain Prost, and there was contact. There are very much two ways people see this accident. Many believe that Alain Prost deliberately turned into Senna to secure himself the championship, whilst maybe Prost fans would say Senna braked way too late and was inevitably going to miss the corner and was trying for a bold move that was never going to pay off. However, the cars both stalled after this accident. Prost got out of his car and retired from the race, whilst Ayrton Senna got some assistance from the marshals and resumed via the escape road, which is an incredibly important factor in him rejoining the track. Ayrton Senna went on to win the race after even pitting for a brand new front wing and catching down a Benetton that was leading the race after this pit stop. An incredible turn of events had seen Ayrton Senna go from a very much outsider in the championship to having a chance going to the last round of the season in Australia. That's what everyone thought, until immediately after the race, Ayrton Senna was disqualified for missing the chicane on the lap he crashed with Alain Prost. This caused a massive debate, but the result of the championship stood. Alain Prost won the championship after Senna was disqualified from the Japanese Grand Prix. This was definitely one of the biggest moments in Formula One history, as many people believed the French governing body at the time, the French staff right at the top, were desperate for Prost to win the championship, and they were desperate to find a way to disqualify Senna. They saw this opportunity of missing the chicane as a chance to penalise Senna and disqualify him from the race, eradicating any chance of him winning the championship in the last round of the season in Australia. It was a surprising turn of events, and even though McLaren did protest the decision to show that even Prost had done similar things in the past and not been hindered with a penalty, the championship standing stood and both cars retired from the Australian Grand Prix nonetheless. So the 1989 season was a championship win for Alain Prost, Ayrton Senna finishing in second place. So their years as teammates so far were one championship apiece and one second place apiece, but the 1989 season was way more controversial than the first. But then, it didn't stop. 1990 got even more intense. It seemed that Alain Prost had had enough of having Ayrton Senna as a teammate after really wanting him to join the team just a few years earlier, and understandably so, the two were definitely not getting along in the team. So for 1990, Alain Prost sought out a new challenge in the Ferrari team, and this was a risk because the Ferrari team were not so competitive in the seasons prior, so it was a risk for Alain Prost to go to the Ferrari team in hopes that they would be able to battle for the championship. Ayrton Senna decided to keep his place in the McLaren team and stay on for another year in 1990. So the two were at it once again, but this time in different teams. Alain Prost in the Ferrari and Ayrton Senna in the McLaren. Two greatest rivals in Formula 1 history possibly, and in terms of teams as well. McLaren versus Ferrari, another iconic battle that went all the way to the wire. 1990 was very much a ping-pong battle between the two greatest teams in the sport at the time. McLaren versus Ferrari was the flavour of things in the season. They were trading wins back and forth, and it was a very close championship going to the last couple of rounds of the season, but this time it was Alain Prost on the back foot. He wasn't quite as quick over the season as Ayrton Senna, and going into the Japanese Grand Prix, he was now the one that needed to win the Japanese and Australian Grand Prix to win the championship, and Ayrton Senna merely needed to pick up a couple of points to wrap up another championship in the McLaren team. But just like the year prior, it wasn't quite as simple as that. Ayrton Senna started on pole position for this second to last race of the season, but that was controversial in itself. Ayrton Senna realised that second place on the grid was actually going to be the better starting block, as that was where the majority of the cars ran over the race weekend. That was where all of the grip was. He realised that pole position, yes, it was ahead and located on the inside, but cars did not run over that part of the track, so it meant inherently there was going to be a little grip off the starting blocks for him, and he was not going to get a good start. This meant that Prost was inevitably going to be leading to the first corner, and Ayrton Senna protested to try and get the positions changed. He wanted pole position to be on the left hand side of the grid to ensure that he actually got to turn 1 first, as he felt he deserved that after qualifying on pole position. However, nothing changed. Prost started on the grippier left hand side of the grid in second position, and Ayrton Senna started this race on the inside on the low grip part of the track. And then once again, one of Formula 1's most iconic moments happened. Alain Prost predictably got the better start on the run down to the first corner, and he managed to get ahead of Senna going into the first corner, or so we thought. Senna got back into the slipstream of Prost, pulled alongside once again and looked down the inside of Prost into the first corner and tried to make the move stick, but the two predictably made contact and they were both out on the spot. Unlike the year prior, neither car was getting out of the gravel trap with any assistance at all. It was not going to help. Both cars were out of this race. Ayrton Senna was the world champion of 1990, and this was once again one of the most controversial moments in Formula 1 history. It was much debated whether this was on purpose from Ayrton Senna as payback from the year prior, or payback to the FIA for not switching around the positions on the grid, or just payback to Prost for what he thought was an undeserving 89 championship for the French driver. Once again, I'm not really here to give my opinion on the situation, even though I feel like if that was modern day Formula 1, we probably would see a penalty for Ayrton Senna, and I feel like most people would see that maybe as the Ayrton Senna side of things as being the cause of the crash, but I can definitely see the situation from the Senna side of things, that Prost kind of turned into him once again. There was a bit of a space, like Ayrton Senna's famous words said, if you don't go for a gap, you're no longer a racing driver. There was a gap there to be had, but whether it was realistic and that overtake was actually going to happen, that is debatable. So I'm not here to give an opinion. They're the two sides of it. Whether you think Prost turned in once again or Senna went for the accident, you can let me know what you think in the comment section down below. but that ended the championship in 1990 for the teams and the drivers. Ferrari finished second place in both the drivers and the constructors championship, and McLaren won with Ayrton Senna at the top of the table once again. So the two understandably did not really see eye to eye for the rest of their Formula 1 time together, and towards the end of Prost's career he moved to Williams and won his 4th championship in 1993. He was looking to stay on in 1994, but Williams had signed up Senna to race for the team, and Prost did not want another battle with him and decided to retire as a 4-time world champion. And apparently the two did not have a terrible relationship after Prost had retired from the sport. They started to talk about their time in Formula 1 together and started to just relay stories back and forth. Maybe not an incredibly friendly relationship, but they did start talking a little bit more after Prost's retirement in 1994. And of course we lost Senna just a few months later at the San Marino Grand Prix in 1994, one of the most tragic moments in the sport's history, losing one of the greatest drivers through a very, what seemed at the time a very normal accident, had turned into one of the saddest moments in Formula 1 history. But nonetheless, both of these drivers will be remembered as two of the greatest in Formula 1 ever. Not just in era, ever. I feel these two will always be remembered as some of the greatest. And I personally wasn't born when they were both racing, but looking back at their moments together, it was an incredible time in Formula 1, and I feel like it's a little bit now what we have in modern day Formula 1 with Hamilton versus Vettel, but maybe their personalities weren't quite as they aren't as exaggerated as maybe Prost and Senna's were at the time. So I pay my massive respects to both these drivers, two of no doubt the greatest drivers in Formula 1 history, and it's a pleasure to be able to still have the footage to look back at them. And of course it's very sad we have Ayrton Senna no longer with us, but it's great that we have Prost here to sort of relay some of these stories, and been some great pieces on Sky F1 and of course the SENNA movie as well that have helped alleviate some of these stories and let us understand them a little bit more. So that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you so much for watching it. Hopefully you did enjoy it. And yeah, I tried to not inject my opinion too much into this one. I realised that sometimes opinion videos don't always go the right way, so I tried to stay back a little bit from the opinions in this one and basically just tell a story. And I think it's a really fascinating story of just Formula 1 in general, and it's one that we'll never forget. So thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you did enjoy this video. Please drop a like on the video if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and yeah, keep up to date on social media if you are interested. Thanks for watching.